because we got a long one today, and I would like to get it all done today. So we will see how that goes. Let's do the housekeeping, and all the housekeeping is me reminding you that we are Creative Life Spiritual Center. The website is creativelife.org. The constant contact is email, info@creativelife.org. That gets you one email a week unless something unusual happens. I will remind you, we do live in hurricane country. And it's a real person doing it. The hot links are hot. So it tells you what's going on for the week and the month. It also has links. If it says click here now, it'll take you right to the information. And it is a blind CC, which means nobody will see your email. Nobody will get your email from us. So please feel free to do that. There's a lot of great information in there. And then on top of that, no. The last thing I always talk about is the social media. Why do I talk about the social media? Because I'm doing this on social media. But we don't monetize the social media. We don't want to deal with the ads any more than you do. So what we ask you to do instead is to engage with the pages. Please like, follow, subscribe to the pages. Because when you subscribe, like to YouTube and allow notifications, it'll let you know when we upload new videos. And on Facebook, if you allow notifications, it'll tell you when we go live. So, and then engage with the posts. So like, I say react. You're also welcome to love and wow and, laugh at posts because some of them are funny. I like to think I'm funny. If nothing other than funny looking. So here we go. So react to the post, comment on the post, share the post. Come on. You get a cameo. Look at that. Okay. And that's as long as Gio's going to tolerate that. They now have free run of the house. They still get put in the kitten room at night and during the day when we are not here. But when we are both here or when one of us is here, they have free run of the house. And so you may not see them much anymore. All right. So living the science of mind is what we are doing now with, I've talked about my pet theory ad nauseum. Basically, all but 2 of these essays came out of the at-home course. So, which used to be at the back of the Science of Mind magazine. You could mail off for it. Then they'd mail you a lesson a week for 48 weeks, which you can still get. They have bound it into 6 books. The best thing to do is go to the Science of Mind archives to look for it and use their Amazon link, because if you use their Amazon link, then they get some of the money for it. And you definitely want to do that. Dante trotted in here and then trotted right back out. He was not going to get near the camera. I think that these essays were pulled from the at-home course. I really think the at-home course came out of the fact that people had questions. They came to the lectures, they read the textbook, and they had questions. And so they would contact Ernest with their questions, and he would write answers. Because that's exactly what these feel like. These are answers to questions. So now today we have spiritual mind healing and mental suggestion. So he's going to tell you what the difference is. And he's going to take 6 pages to do it. So I want to get on with this. So let me get the light on. Get my trusty highlighter out. And spiritual mind healing and mental suggestion. While it is self-evident that some degree of mental suggestion enters into all human relationships, we must be careful not to confuse spiritual mind healing with the popular concept of mental suggestion. In this practice, suggestion disappears and explanation takes its place. All right. Someone might contend that explanation itself is a form of suggestion. We admit that there is some basis for this claim if by mental suggestion it is meant changing one's thought after receiving instruction from another. From this viewpoint, would we say that a teacher is practicing mental suggestion when pointing out to a student their error in working a mathematical problem and then explaining how it should be solved? we would not consider this mental suggestion, but explanation. It is certain that suggestion plays a subtle role in all life. If we go out into the desert, we receive a suggestion of its calmness. If we look at a glorious sunset, there is a suggestion of infinite peace and beauty. It is possible to read the daily newspaper. It is impossible to read the daily newspaper or a book without receiving some suggestion. When we read advertisements in the newspaper or in magazines, the principle of suggestion is operating. That's the whole point of advertising. It is not so much a question of whether suggestion is playing this subtle role in human life. Rather, it is a question of whether the dominant suggestions of human life are constructive. Okay, that's an interesting idea. Here he may get into race consciousness. Let's find out. In this analysis, it is necessary to understand whether we think of mental explanation as being a suggestion. For instance, if someone says 2 and 2 make 5, and we explain to them that 2 and 2 make 4, do we consider our explanation a suggestion? No, because that's the way it works. Okay. Undoubtedly, we should all agree that the teaching of the truth is an... Oh, wait, hang on. If so, then every teaching of the truth becomes a suggestion. Undoubtedly, we should all agree that the teaching of the truth is an explanation rather than a suggestion. And in drawing our line, we realize that if teaching the truth is a mental suggestion, then it is a most desirable one. The only suggestion we need to avoid the only suggestions we need to avoid are the destructive ones, those that coerce the minds. Okay. A question might be asked, is faith healing mental suggestion? Does the atmosphere of a particular shrine suggest some positive conviction that can heal? Another question almost inevitably follows, is this exchanging one belief for another? Since we are finite, I suppose we generally exchange one belief for another. But if we make a good bargain by trading lesser beliefs for greater ones, then I presume we have done well. What? Okay, he just went some random direction that I was not expecting. Okay, so there's a question, and then there is another question. Ugh, I don't know where he's going. Okay. There have been long and varied discussions on this subject as to whether or not spiritual mind healing is based on a principle of mental suggestion. Those whose entire interest in the field of psychology claim that this whole field is one of mental suggestion. They call it spiritual suggestion. On the one hand, the average metaphysician will disclaim any element of suggestion in their work and tell you that they heal through the knowledge that God is all. It is certain that the practice of mental suggestion, the one making the suggestion, must be present with their patient, and the patient must be consciously... Okay. I guess he's explaining how mental suggestion works, so let me go back. Okay. It is certain that in the practice of mental suggestion, the one making the suggestion must be present with their patient, and the patient must be consciously receptive to their suggestion. In our field, the practitioner does not have the slightest need of knowing where their patient is when they treat them. In the treatment, they do not mentally address their patient. For instance, they do not say, John Smith, you are thus and so, or you are going to be thus and so. Okay, all right. See, now that makes sense why they jumped all over us about using the word you. Because it smacks of mental suggestion. Okay. Because, I mean, I didn't have that experience so much, and maybe it was because they explained when I went through ministerial school why we don't use you. And there's two reasons. One, we're treating our own consciousness when we do treatments. And two, mental suggestion. We are not suggesting to the person, this is the way it is. We are telling ourselves, this is the way it is. So, okay, interesting. All right. But that would explain why when you go through treatment and meditation, and they just jump all over you about using you, because it's mental suggestion. Okay. We all know that the average suggestive therapist must be in the room with their patient. But in our form of healing, we do not care where the patient is or what they may be doing when we are giving the treatment for them. Therefore, suggestion, as it is commonly practiced, would not be effective in what we call absent treatment. And we know in our field that absent treatment is just as effective as present treatment. In ordinary methods of mental suggestion, it is considered advisable for the patient to be relaxed, receptive, acquiescent, but the practitioner in our field does not consider these points in their practice. In some cases, the patient does not know that they are a patient. The reason being that in this field, the practitioner does all their work within themselves. Okay. Okay. All right. In treating, they recognize that the one they recognize the one they are seeking to help by saying this word is for John Smith or Mary Jones or Martin Andrews. They specify the person the treatment is for. They identify the treatment with the person. All their work is done in their own mind, in their own thought, with complete disregard for where their patient may be or what they may be doing or what they may be thinking about at that particular time. The practitioner clears up their own consciousness. That is what spiritual practice is. Jesus did not suggest anything to the paralyzed man when he told him to get up and walk. Okay. So this goes back to when Ernest was starting out, and when Emma, they didn't do treatments out loud. When we started taking clients, I guess we started, because they want to hear what they're being paid for, what they're paying for, which is when we started doing treatments out loud. Or with, like, Jesse writes beautiful treatments. But, we don't have to do them out loud. In fact, when this all started, most science of mind practitioners didn't do them out loud because treatment is an internal thing. Okay. Of course, we do not deny that much disease is the result of suggestion, whether that suggestion be self-suggestion or whether it arises spontaneously from the consensus of human opinion, which is what he calls race consciousness. Or he says which we might call collective suggestion. We do not deny that suggestion plays not only a subtle but a powerful role in human life, individually and collectively. And that in all probability, it is impossible to escape some of its effects. What we affirm is that in this form of practice, one does not try to suggest anything to one's patient. They do not say, you are getting better, even though such a statement might be salutary. The practitioner must know that they are dealing only with the spiritual person, and the spiritual person does not get better. They are already perfect. Okay. All right. Hang on. The spiritual person does not get better. They already are perfect. This form of treatment is a revelation of the self to the self. So from the capital self to the lowercase self. And is arrived at instantly through realization or by stages through the reversal of consciousness. But whether we are able to recognize instantly the truth for someone or through the process of affirmation and denial arrive at the same conclusion makes no difference. In neither instance do we try to suggest anything to the patient, and yet we realize that in some way the recognition that we make must operate through the patient if it is to heal them. Blah. Just how this happens, no one knows. Cop out, Ernest. Cop out. Just how this happened, no one knows. But because it happens in the oneness. That's how it happens. But yeah, I agree. Okay, just how this happened, no one knows. But that it does happen without any attempt on the part of the practitioner to do anything other than arrive at the realization for their patient is certain. And Christian Science has years of documentation on this. Treatment contains no element of mental coercion, practices no form of conscious suggestion or mental concentration. Okay. My highlighter is dying. Okay, we're halfway through. Oof. Treatment is a series of statements about some person, an argument in mind about some person, or a realization of what we call the truth about some person. But whether it takes the form of a series of statements or an argument in mind or a realization, it is effective to such degree as the practitioner becomes inwardly conscious of what we call the truth about their patient, that the patient is now complete and perfect. It is our belief that wherever spiritual mind healing has been successfully practiced or demonstrated, one unifying and identical principle has run through all such practice, the element of both conviction and acceptance. Now the question might be asked, does faith pass into the certainty of understanding? The answer is both yes and no. But faith is in electricity passes into the understanding that the energy which we call electricity exists and that we may use it. But even understanding that it exists is faith that it will always respond to us according to what we have discovered to be the law of its being. All sciences ultimately resolve themselves into a series of faiths in natural laws discovered and demonstrated. Faith may pass into understanding. Applying this principle, faith may pass into understanding. Applying this principle in spiritual mind healing, we announce that faith in God or good has throughout the ages definitely demonstrated the presence of a universal principle of God. Thus, faith may pass through experiment to scientific certainty, which is knowledge. From this standpoint, we would not say that faith, as exhibited through the ages, is merely a mental suggestion, for it is definitely more than this. It has been and is an unconscious mental union with reality. It would be absurd for a modern metaphysician to deny that this experience has come historically to people of varying spiritual convictions, and it would seem intelligent to recognize that the universal principle always works wherever, whenever, and in such a degree as anyone consciously or unconsciously, in ignorance or in wisdom, in superstition or in fear, provides an avenue through which it may work. That was a lot. Thus, we arrive at a concept of the universality and impersonality, the changeless reality of natural principles. Faith has been the most dynamic power throughout the ages, and it should not be denounced as mere suggestion. But understanding that faith has demonstrated a principle, we should seek to understand that principle, and we should make every endeavor to reproduce it at will, the two infrequent experiences which result from the attitude of faith. What? Oh, okay. So faith has demonstrated a principle. We should seek to understand the principle and demonstrate that principle more frequently than faith has done it, I think is what he just said. We agree that while mental suggestion plays some subtle role in spiritual mind healing, it is not the dominant factor, and as far as the practitioner is concerned, it does not enter into it at all, since they make no attempt to suggest anything to their patient at any time or under any circumstance. If someone tells us that the practitioner of this science does their work in the field of mental explanation, we may agree with them, but we must hasten to add that this explanation operates through some universal field which needs no coercion, which is independent of time, place, and circumstance, which knows neither big nor small, hard nor easy, past nor future, but appears to exist in the eternal now and in an everlasting here. In practice, this here and now is in the mind of the practitioner. What? Okay. I'm making a mark so I can go back and really dig into that because, okay. But basically, here and now. Moreover, when we apply the ordinary concept of mental suggestion to another phase of our work, which is the control of conditions through right thinking, we find it impossible to accept suggestion as an explanation. For while we might suggest to an individual that they are successful, how could this make them successful in an actual objective fact unless thought also operated in a field entirely independent of the immediate environment? I think he's gotten away from me. For instance, to what or whom would a grocer give suggestions if they were working for prosperity? Suppose they had no customers. Then there is no one to receive his suggestion. We must fall back upon the idea that his suggestions are made to sacks of potatoes or bags of beans. These inanimate objects, the commodities which they have to sell, together with the cases in which they display their goods, are apparently the only things open to suggestion. And whoever heard of a person suggesting to a can of beans that it could sell itself or that it could go out and find a customer? Yeah, he's lost me now. What? Of course, we are not denying that most advertising is suggestive or that many methods of suggestion are used in all businesses. We are not denying that one may, to some slight degree at least, influence others. What we are doing is affirming that this is not the method used in this form of practice. Our grocer, who has no customers to receive their suggestion, must know something that will bring their customers. This they do through the activity of right ideas, realizing that the activity of right ideas is the real activity and that there is no solid fact, that all facts are fluid. The grocer resolves things into thoughts and handles the thoughts, not the things. Suppose one wishes to attract new friendships. They start out by having no friends with whom they can offer suggestions of friendship. There is nothing to coerce because there is no one there to be coerced. They can influence no one because there is no one in their environment to be influenced or to influence. They start from scratch, and unless there were a principle which acted independently, they could not attract new friendships into their life. It is self-evident then that this part of the practice is not mental suggestion. It is the mental realization, which brings us right back to the central theme of our whole philosophy. We are brought back to the fundamental proposition that the self-realization is based on self-existence, and self-existence from the universal standpoint means that the generative, productive, and projective power of the universe is at the point of the person's self-recognition and responds to the person's self-recognition. What? Okay. All right. Okay. That was 6 pages. And I can see why we don't read this article very often. I don't think it's very good. So his whole point is to say that there is very little to no mental suggestion in spiritual mind treatment. And I bought his explanation in the beginning because what he said in the beginning was, we can do the treatment. We don't care where the patient is or the client is when we do the treatment. The client can be sitting in front of us, but doesn't have to be. Frequently, we are emailed or texted, because I'm on, in at least one text chain, if not a couple, where prayer requests are texted. And so when we get those emails or, whatever, or like if I see it on Facebook, people will say, hey, have a good thought, or please pray for me. They don't know when I'm doing it. I don't know what they're doing when I'm doing it. So there is nothing in my treatment that is mental suggestion. That's what all 6 pages were about. And then he muddied the water by talking about. So basically what he was saying is that this is what mental suggestion is. And there's little to no mental suggestion in spiritual mind treatment. Okay? I think that article was like 4 pages too long. And now I'm going to encourage you to have a great day, wondrous day, a fantastic day, a magical day, an enchanted day, a wonderful day, an awesome day, an amazing day, a take care of business day, a you got this day, a enjoy the cloud covered day, although it's already breaking up. So yeah, stay out of this direct sunlight between 10 and 2 day, a be careful of the heat day, a drink plenty of water day, a you got this day, a take care of yourself day, a take a break day, a eat something amazing day, a do something good for yourself day, a cuddle your fur babies day, a tell somebody you love them day, a good day. And if that is too much pressure, simply have a day. You are enough, just as you are. You're a beloved expression of the divine. You're spirit in motion, God in action, a brilliant light, a divine spark, a beautiful masterpiece, and a work in progress at the same time at your own pace. Very important part of that statement. And as Reverend Jesse likes to call us, you are a godling, okay? You're a beloved expression of the divine. Explore the truth of your being. Get to know who the divine knows you to be, because the divine knows you to be good. And from there, anything is possible. All right, beloveds. Oh, that was, like I said, 6 pages of an article. It was 4 pages too long. Reverend David should be on around 5 p.m. with you. I will be back with you tomorrow. Hang on. And tomorrow, it is a 1-page article. So, it'll be a whole lot shorter. Okay. So, I will be back with you around 9:15. Take care of yourself. Know that you are loved. And I will see you next time.